Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be evaluating functions at specific points. But before we do that, let's just go over the requirements one more time of what it means to be a function really quickly. If you are a function, then one input has one output. Also, one input does not have two different outputs, because that would break the first rule that we had. X and Y have to have some sort of pairing together. X's and Y's don't have to just be plain numbers. They could represent real things, and that's why we sometimes use the words inputs and outputs. For example, you wouldn't say tacos are your inputs and cheeseburgers are your outputs. Those two things, there isn't really a relationship between them. You wouldn't be able to make a function with those two things. They have to have some sort of pairing together normally. Your inputs are going to be your X numbers, and your outputs are going to be your Y numbers. Domain are the X's, which is also the inputs, and range are the Y's. We have all these different words because functions are a very broad topic, and they're used in lots of different situations. So you can't just only think of it as one specific thing, because functions can be lots of things. You normally get to pick the X that you plug in. Sometimes you don't. If they give you the X, and if you get to pick your own X, you're going to have to solve for the output of the function. Now let's finally solve for the outputs of functions. Here's our worksheet. We have a function called f and a function called g. This is function f of x. And this is function g of x. G of x is equal to x squared minus x. F of x is equal to 3x plus 2. This is a new type of notation, and it's called function notation. The functions can be labeled with different letters. Functions are labeled with different letters followed by parentheses, x, close parentheses. This doesn't mean that they're multiplying that parentheses with x. That just means that is the function's letter for its name, and x is the input. F is not multiplying x. F is a function named f, and that function, whatever the output is, depends on whatever input you choose for x. You get to choose what goes inside that parentheses, except in this example video because they were already chosen for us, and then you have to find what the output is. Now let's finally do some examples. I hope you wrote down those notes. Rewind if you didn't. F of 4 means that we have a function f Remember, whatever's inside that parentheses is the input. So we have f of 4 means that we are using 4 as our input, and our inputs go in for x. So we're going to copy the equation down here, only instead of writing x, you're going to put the number 4. Then you just solve it like you were plugging in a number. 3 times 4 makes 12, plus 2 equals 14. F of 4 is equal to 14. Let's do the next one. F of negative 2. That means negative 2 is the input. x is negative 2 is what we're saying. By putting it inside the parentheses, we're saying that x is negative 2. So in our function for f, we're doing 3 times negative 2. Let's use the parentheses instead of the dot just because that looks better for the negatives, plus 2. 3 times negative 2 makes negative 6, and then it says plus 2. So negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. F of negative 2 is equal to negative 4. F of negative 2, when these two things are looked at together, then this is the output. That's the specific output that we want, is f of negative 2. Negative 4 is the answer. That's the answer for f of negative 2. Whenever we use f, this is very similar to saying y equals negative 4. Because our outputs are y's, f of negative 2 has an output for the answer, so that output, which is negative 4, will be equal to y. Now I'll just do like 4 examples without talking too much.